Good evening, good afternoon from La Farnesina. I'm very pleased to be here today to introduce this particularly important award ceremony held in the framework of the Agreement on Industrial, Scientific and Technological Cooperation between Italy and Israel. We are in fact celebrating the 5th edition of the Rita Levi Montalcini Prize, an award which has contributed and keeps on contributing to the deepening of our cooperation with Israel in the most innovative sectors, especially through the exchange of scientists and researchers operating in the field of natural science and applied science. This year in particular, due to COVID pandemic-related travel restrictions, we were unfortunately not able to hold the ceremony in presence here at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation in Rome, as we do every year. Nevertheless, we all know very well that Italian-Israeli scientific cooperation is an excellent example of resilience and adaptation to all situations, as we saw for the industrial and scientific joint projects which have carried on also during the pandemic. So, even if in a virtual conference, we will celebrate our friendship and pay tribute to the outstanding work of Israeli and Italian scholars. We have organized this ceremony in a hybrid format, thanks to which the Rita Levi Montalcini Prize will be delivered by our ambassador to Israel, live from our embassy in Tel Aviv. And from there, the awardee will deliver his presentation. Following, we will listen to a presentation from his Italian counterpart connected from his university in Italy. I have now the pleasure to introduce the video messages recorded by the Italian Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Marina Sereni, the Italian Minister of University and Research, Cristina Messa, and the Israeli Ambassador to Italy, Dror Eyadar. Please.
Good evening and thank you for being with us today. The ceremony dedicated to the Rita Levi Montalcini Prize is one of the most important initiatives in the flourishing technological and industrial cooperation between Italy and Israel. I would like to thank the Minister of University and Research, Cristina Messa, for her participation and support, the CRUI Foundation, the Italian Ambassador to Israel, Gianluigi Benedetti, and the Israeli Ambassador to Italy, Dror Eyadar. My personal thanks also go to the many Italian and Israeli scientists and researchers who have joined this event. Rita Levi Montalcini was a figure of incredible value. She remains a role model for our country and the international scientific community. Professor Montalcini gave a leading contribution to the development of neuroscience and was a pioneer advocate for women's rights. Among the many awards of her long career, let me mention the Nobel Prize for Medicine in 1986. As a further recognition of her outstanding contribution to science and research, the President of the Italian Republic also appointed her as Senator for Life. Her life continues to be an inspiration for all, especially in this period of pandemics. Now, more than ever, we all see the crucial importance of supporting the research in the field of life sciences to seek vaccines and therapies against COVID-19. Rita Levi Montalcini had a determined and tenacious spirit. Her spirit may well represent the intense collaboration between Italy and Israel in fields of industry, science and technology. The scientific, technological and industrial agreement between Italy and Israel is a precious tool for constructive exchanges between our countries. Under this umbrella, we co-financed over 220 joint projects of academic and industrial research, 11 joint laboratories, 145 scientific events, seminars and workshops. These impressive figures confirm how Italy and Israel have complementary economic systems, the Italian research and its traditional role of manufacturing country meets the extraordinary Israeli ecosystem of innovation. Italy and Israel are strongly committed to work together to build a better future, a future of peace, security, and prosperity for present and future generations. Over the time, our two countries have been able to build an all-encompassing cooperation that, thanks to the solid ties that unite our peoples, makes us look forward with optimism to the challenges of the coming years. I am confident that the formation of a new Israeli government will contribute to increase even further our strategic and extraordinary partnership. In this framework, the Rita Levi Montalcini Prize provides a unique networking opportunity for eminent Israeli scientists interested in cooperating with Italian universities for joint research projects in Italy. It is therefore my pleasure to congratulate Professor Gadi Al-Qazi of the Tel Aviv University for winning this year's edition of the prize, thanks to his fruitful cooperation with Professor Matteo Al-Kalak of the University of Modena and Reggio Emilia in the field of digital humanities. I was told that the selection panel had no doubt in awarding this prominent project, which was considered outstanding. I hope that today's occasion will encourage Italian scientists and companies to further increase their participation in the Italy-Israeli joint calls and promote innovative ideas, creating new ties between our scientific communities. Thank you and congratulations to the awardees.
Good morning. Let me first congratulate with the researcher that won the prize, Rita Levi Montalcini, for the scientific cooperation between Italy and Israel, to the researcher working at the project Mutina Ebraita of the Departmental Center on Digital Humanities of University Modena Reggio Emilia. This award is well-deserved, and it is a sign of a very good collaboration between Israel and Italy on classical studies, such as the one who won the prize. The award allows a researcher from Israel, Professor Gadi Al-Ghazi, to spend some time in Italy to finalize research projects on this matter. And this is another very interesting point that because it encourages the mobility of our researchers and professors amongst different states and different institutes. That is always enriching our knowledge and competencies. There are several points that make this award particularly interesting. The first one is that it derives from a collaboration between the Foreign Affairs Ministry, the Research and University Ministry, and the Rector Conference that works in tight collaboration in order to give importance to research projects. The second is the exchange between Italy and Israel that has been tradition of our two countries, and with this project is just increasing in its importance. And the third one is the mobility of researcher and professor, as I already mentioned. So my congratulations to the researcher of the project, University Modena Reggio Emilia, to Professor Gadi Al-Ghazi, who will come and will be host in Italy for a while, and to all the people who collaborated for the realization of such an important award. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, friends, thank you for this opportunity to be with you on this occasion of awarding the Rita Levi Montalcini Prize to Professor Gadi Al-Ghazi from Tel Aviv University. Mazal Tov, Gadi. This award is part of rich ties and collaborations between Israel and Italy in the field of science and academia. In the past year, we have worked closely together to fight the coronavirus. We shared information on a weekly basis and signed an MOU between our mutual research institutions for the development of a cure to that disease. We also offered the Italian government to participate in the development of the Israeli vaccine. It is symbolic that the prize awarded to an Israeli researcher is named after Rita Levi Montalcini, an outstanding Jewish Italian scientist and a Nobel laureate in medicine. Rita had to hide during World War II under a false identity and helped the partisans. It was then, in the darkness of the war and the Holocaust, that Montalcini began her scientific experiments that some 40 years later awarded her the Nobel Prize for discovering the cause of nerve growth factor. Our relations with modern Italy began before the establishment of the State of Israel. When Italy was united, Jews in Europe drew inspiration from it to the revival of the Jewish people in their land. The intellectual Moses Hess was influenced by the revival of Italian nationalism and by Giuseppe Mazzini. Hess wrote, "With the liberation of the eternal city on the Tiber River, the liberation of the eternal city on Mount Moriah will also begin, and with the revival of Italy, the revival of Judea will start." This year's prize is assigned in a field close to my heart, history and technology. Our two countries are rich in history, in documents and texts, as well as archaeological sites. The need to preserve the past is not only an academic need, but also educational. Thanks to the memory of the past, we succeeded to survive throughout history because we knew where we came from and where we wanted to return. Nevertheless, we are not talking only about preservation. Advanced technology helps us to restore the past and revive it. Today, just pushing a button, we can scan a vast textual knowledge and as a result, deepen our possibilities of interpretation and understanding of the various texts. In my library, there are volumes of the Talmud translated into Italian. This is a great project supported by the Italian government as part of a development of translation software based on artificial intelligence, and I highly recommend it. The Talmud was in fact a hypertext many centuries before the birth of the internet. The Talmudic text converses with the Bible and with literature of the Second Temple period. And after its writing in the 5th century, many later interpretive texts joined to this intertextual conversation. I would like to take this opportunity to thank my friend, the Italian ambassador to Israel, Gianluigi Benedetti, for his excellent work over the past years in deepening the relationships between our two countries. And I wish him success in his next position in Japan. Quite a big change, buddy. And once again, congratulations to the laureate, Chatan HaPras, Professor Gadi Al-Ghazi, Mazal Tov, and thank you from Rome. Shalom.
I have now the pleasure to introduce Professor Matteo Alcalac from... apologies. I pass the floor to our Italian ambassador to Israel, His Excellency Gianluigi Benedetti, for his welcome address and for delivering the Rita Levi Montalcini Prize to Professor Gadi Al-Ghazi from Tel Aviv University.
Thank you very much, Fabrizio. I want to thank my colleague and friend Dror for the very nice words that we just heard in the previous intervention. I'm honored to take part in this ceremony, bestowing the Rita Levi Montalcini Prize on Professor Gadi Al-Ghazi from the History Department of the Tel Aviv University. It is actually one of the last ceremonies I attend as the ambassador of Italy to Israel, as soon I will be leaving to my new position as ambassador of Italy in Tokyo. Cooperation in science and technology between our two countries, between Italy and Israel, has always been close to my heart. And this prize, fostering and celebrating it at the senior academic level, has a special place among our many activities. Throughout the 20 years of its existence, our bilateral cooperation agreement on science and technologies has taken care of joint labs, scientific and industrial projects, bilateral conferences, and lately of accelerating several among the best Italian startups in the Israeli innovation ecosystem. At a certain point, it was clear to all of us that in the effort of strengthening cooperation between Italy and Israel in all sectors of innovation, something was missing. That missing cornerstone was the involvement of senior researchers with their experience and competencies. With this in mind, in 2018, we have come up with a dedicated instrument, the Rita Levi Montalcini Prize, directed to senior scholars who already have an ongoing collaboration with Italian counterparts. Since launching it together with our Israeli counterpart, the Council of Higher Education, we have bestowed the prize on several senior scholars, both here and in Italy, beginning with Israeli Prize laureate, Professor Itamar Procaccia from the Weizmann Institute of Science. We have witnessed with satisfaction how the award gains in growing interest in academic circles, as it truly allows a sort of constant academic engagement, even if only for a limited period of time, with research teams of the other country that allows the discovery of new paths for joint work and large-scope collaborations. Today, we are bestowing the 2021 Rita Levi Montalcini Prize on Professor Gadi Al-Ghazi. Professor Al-Ghazi is an historian of late medieval and early modern Europe, specializing in anthropology and social history. He studied in Tel Aviv and Göttingen, and is currently among the editors of the journal Past and Present, and in the past served as chief editor of History and Memory. He had research fellowships in Berlin and Paris, and is presently the director of the Tel Aviv Institute of German History. We are convinced that the entire community of students, colleagues, and avid readers of Professor Al-Ghazi's works, both in Israel and in Italy, will benefit from the unique opportunity this award offers. I wish Professor Al-Ghazi and his Italian guest professor Matteo Alcalac the most interesting and beneficial academic experience possible in Italy. Mazal Tov, Professor.
Okay.
And now, with great pleasure, I will confer the prize to the professor. Here is the medal, and I am very pleased and honored to bestow this prize onto you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Grazie.
Thank you.
And now, Professor, the floor is yours.
Yes, I should work a bit. Yeah. I think it should work. Yes. Good day. It's a very special day for me. I am utterly grateful and challenged by this wonderful occasion. I'm grateful to the Italian government and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and to all the bodies that have been part of the making of the Rita Levi Montalcini's Prize, which gives me a wonderful exception to deepen my ties with Italian colleagues and especially also with Italian culture and history, with whom I feel very much, attached. Special thanks, I should say, to my host in Modena, to Professor Matteo Alcalac and his colleagues, among them Maria Chiara Rioli and others. And I'm really looking forward to working with them together and to learn as much as possible and perhaps contribute something to the ongoing work. Still, I have to do my own task and explain without making it too quaint or difficult what I'm up to and what I'm interested in. So I'm interested in the history of science, but science is not simply about epistemology and knowledge. Science is also a very special way of life that I'm very happy to share. And the question is, how do ways of life change? We know so much about culture, societies, polities, but ways of life are something that shape people's everyday existence. And scientists and scholars have a special one. So let's see the first image. I hope we can. Yeah. Okay, so here you can see one of the most famous images of European scholars. There are practically thousands of visual representations of scholars in the studies. And the prototype is, of course, this portrait of Petrarca in his room with high-tech technology. Just look at the books on his desk. This is not just reading, this is about comparing, analyzing, but what I want you to look at are the people that are missing from this room. This is an image of scholarly solitude. This is an image of silence of a scholar who has no one in his study other than one little dog, and this dog is sleeping. So it's really an image of complete silence and concentration. Now, on the one hand, this image had a profound impact. You know, Petrarchism is all over the early modern world. But in one respect, this is a very misleading image because it stands for an image of solitude and for celibacy. And celibacy was indeed the norm among North European scholars until around 1500. Not in Italy, not in Spain, not in Mediterranean Europe, but in the North, most academic scholars had no wives. They had other things to do, but no families. Now, what I'm interested in is to understand how ways of life change. And around 1500, a different model was shaped gradually. And this is the model of scholarly families. Scholars began marrying, they had children, and they had to adapt their whole world, their whole way of life to the new reality of scholarly families. This image is from a wonderful painting in the Louvre. We may say this is by Rembrandt or one of his collaborators. And on the left, you see a scholar or perhaps a man meditating. This is where the light comes. This is where knowledge is. And on your right, depending on how you look at it, behind the S-shaped staircase, you see a woman working. So you have here a combination of a gender division of work between a man and a woman, between the spirit and material needs. It's not an egalitarian one, but it's one we have to live with, at least until things change, and they are gradually changing. So what happens when scholars found such families? The project that for quite some time I work in, and I hope to complete in conversation during my stay at Modena, is about these very new type of families. And under 3 different headings, we can study how this new way of life emerges. One is what kind of families, what type of kinship structures emerge there. This has to do with historical anthropology. A second is about the material infrastructure, the invention of the study, the studio law, or even the family salaries that professors began accepting, and we know how important they are. And the third is new habits of self-discipline and concentration that allowed at least some of them to be alone while being with other people at the very same time. And with these 3 aspects, one, habits or habitus, one is material arrangements, and the third, relationships and families, I think we can get a good grasp of how a new wave of life emerges that remained for us for at least 400 years, if not later. Let me say that such families emerged probably in Italy before they arose in Northern Europe, and that Jewish and Muslim families are interesting in this respect because both religious traditions do not know celibacy. So they had to combine family households with a transmission of knowledge very early, but this did not mean that Jewish women had a better access to knowledge, to science, and to its transformation. So there is an irony, and it's something that is for me very important in the fact that on the one hand, when we look for such crowded household and families, we should not necessarily be looking to humanists and to proper scientists. We can find them in caricatures about alchemists. In their world, the kitchen and the study, the laboratory and everyday life get all mixed up together. But they may be a more realistic model of the life of science than those very orderly rooms that no one can enter that we've seen in Petrarca's image. But if we said this about the unequal chances of Jewish women, we may think how exceptional it was when some women did actually take part in the work of early modern science. And this example is by the depiction of the astronomer Johannes Cevallos in the 17th century. On the left, you'll see a very official classical image of the book and the globe. But on the other side, you will see Cevallos with his young wife, Elisabeth Koopman, and actually they're doing astronomy together. So that's basically these are the parameters of the problem I'm studying. And you can see that the presence of Rita Levi Montalcini is very important in this respect. For she stands not only with resistance to fascism, with a long-term commitment to science and to biology, but also to opening up new ways of life for men and women engaged in science. And her work was not simply to be a role model for many of us scholars, but especially to raise new generations of women in science. So Rita Levi Montalcini I cannot think about a better figure to preside over this last stage of research. So I hope I haven't been spoken for too long, and I'd like to thank you again from the bottom of my heart and pass the word to my colleagues.
Thank you, Professor Al-Ghazi. It's absolutely interesting what you said and you presented to us. And I have now the pleasure to introduce Professor Matteo Alcalà from the University of Modern Reggio Emilia for his presentation. Please, Professor, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you to all, and thank you also for the kind invitation for being here today. So first of all, like my colleague, I would like to greet and to strongly thank the Minister of University and Research, Maria Cristina Messa, and also the Vice Minister, Marina Sereni, the Ambassador of Israel, and of Italian, Ambassador Eidar and Benedetti, the so inspiring words, as well as the director Fabrizio Nicoletti. Then, of course, I would like to warmly thank and also to send my congratulations to my colleague Adi Algazi for agreeing to take part in Mutina Ebraica project, a project that aims at building an ideal bridge between Italy and Israel through historical research and new technology. Finally, I also strongly thank Maria Chiara Rioli, researchers who is strictly collaborating with us, who strongly supported our work, as well as the CRUI Foundation, of course, for having chosen and awarded Mutina Ebraica. So very, very briefly, Mutina Ebraica foresees the publication, the digital publication, in this case, of the Jewish fragments of the medieval and modern age preserved here in the Modena Cultural Institution. And this publication will be on an open access digital platform. The aim is to disseminate and to make accessible to a wider audience the Jewish cultural heritage that is so rich in Northern Italy context, and also to deepen, as my colleague explained, some aspects of the material life or the everyday life of Jewish communities in Europe, and especially in this case in the Northern Italy context. My speech will also briefly, very shortly, introduce the research center of the University of Modena and Reggio Emilia that will host and develop, for certain aspect, the project, and also the digital library, that means the tools we will use for spreading these digitized documents to a wider audience. So I think we can start with the presentation that I'm trying to manage now. Connecting. Okay, perfect. So the Research Center on Digital Humanities of the University of Modena and Reggio Emilia was promoted in 2019 by various departments of our university. That means departments representing different disciplines, such as, for example, humanities, of course, information technology, but also economics, law, education, and communication. So different aspects of all very precious to implement and also to disseminate the humanistic knowledge. The center is part, just a few words, the center is part of a larger project that is a very ambitious project named AGO. So that is the abbreviation of Agostino, is a sort of Modena cultural factory, let's say, that is supported. This project is supported by various institutions, including the Foundation of Modena. And starting from the renewal of an old 18th century hospital that was named, entitled to Agostino, Sant'Agostino the Saint, AGO will create a knowledge center where scientific and humanistic culture will meet and contaminate each other, also through digital technology. Here you have a very quick overview. I don't want to underline too much and to stop too much on this point, but a very quick overview on the main objectives of our center, which now is developing around 15 different projects on a very wide range of fields, from just to say, to give you two examples, from the digital mapping of the contemporary Spanish poetry to the philosophical aspect of the digital transformation. However, focusing only on Mutina Ebraica, that is the topic of today's ceremony, and also of the research of my dear colleague Gadi, what I should like to stress and to anticipate is the digital library that will house the results of the work that the center will be doing, also with the so important and crucial collaboration of Professor Algazi. The center digital library, Lodovico, will host, that's the name, of course, will host the Jewish fragments studied by Professor Algazi in strict cooperation with the center staff members. Lodovico, whose name is a tribute to the great historian and scholar of the 18th century, Lodovico Antonio Muratori, that was born in Modena. So that's the origin of this and the choice of this name. is an open access collection of digitized sources of different times and typology preserved in the Cultural Institution of Modena. And we started with the first release to the public only last February. But after 4 months of work, I think, I say of very intensive work, Ludovico now can feature quite 5,000 digital resources. And the next steps of implementation will be the digitization of a very precious collection of more than 100,000 autographs. That means more than 200,000 pages of documentation, written or signed by artists, musicians, writers, scientists, rulers, and so on, of all the worlds. That means of Europe, but not only Europe. And of course, a second very important, smaller but not less important part of this implementation will be, of course, the Multinebraica project we are developing with the crucial help of Gadi. And so what is the challenge of Ludovico? That is the tools that will have in house the results of our digitization. So the main objective is to create and integrate in a sort of a federative way to create an integrated treatment of the cultural heritage. That means across typological treatment and also cross-institutional treatment, with the aim of encouraging unforeseen research paths through different funds and documentary collection. For this reason, we have chosen a multi-tenant approach. That means various public and private institutions can and will contribute to Ludovico through a common input mask, a shared input mask, using a shared interface. Finally, we will adopt also a so-called open mode philosophy. That means our collection, such as, for example, Multinebraica collection, will directly dialogue with other collections based on the same philosophy and also on the same technology, ICT technology, such as those, for example, those preserved in the Vatican archives, in the National Library of France, in the British Library, and so on. So that means in the most important institution all over the world that preserve cultural heritage and documentation, also regarding the European Jewry and the Jewish history in this case. Through this technology, the history of European Jewry that we hope to better narrate and also to implement, and also the important sources that we will publish will be able to reach a wide audience and link with similar automatically link with similar sources held in other institutions all around the world. So just to stop with the presentation, but just to have a very brief final remark in this so happy celebration for our friend Gadi. I think that the heritage that now we are digitizing and studying comes from a past of suffering and conflict between Christians and Jews. But the friendship that with which we will develop the project is a reminder that I think knowledge and mutual respect are the best path to peace. So with this wish, we and all, my university, we hope to contribute to a better future, even if only through a very few fragments. But so they will be a sign, I think, for a better future for everybody, and also to exit from this very difficult period we have lived. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Alcalac. Now we are cruising towards the conclusions, and therefore I would like to thank the Ministry of University and Research, as well as the Crui Foundation for their constant support to this initiative. I thank also the Italian Embassy in Tel Aviv for his important contribution to the organization of this event, and the Israeli Embassy to Italy for his intervention. Moreover, I thank all the participants, especially the students of Professor Al-Ghazi connected from Tel Aviv University. And again, I would like to express my warm congratulations to Professor Al-Ghazi and his Italian counterpart, Professor Alcalak, for the Rita Levi Montalcini Prize. We will be very happy to meet Professor Algasi, to meet you when you will arrive to Italy for your research period. Thank you very much e arrivederci a presto, grazie a tutti per averci seguito.